So thanks everybody for coming. If you haven't connected already or you need to connect, here's the connection information. The password, 704-912-2772. I'm Brett Bumeter. Ganti is our host. He owns Radiance Med Spa, which, as you can tell, is a great location here. And we're going to cover today how to create WordPress themes. I am not a programmer. I know a little bit of PHP code. I do know HTML and web design, but for the longest time, as I worked with WordPress, I didn't know how to design a WordPress theme. And what I used to do, up until a few months ago, is I'd go to look for a free theme on WordPress, and if I liked it, I'd come in and I'd take a look at the free themes. I might preview it. If I liked the theme and I thought that it did 80 to 90% of what I was looking for, I'd download it, and then I would customize it a little bit. I'd tweak it. I might change out a graphic, or I might change a font size or something, but I'd use something that had already been done. And I'd end up with a theme that did what I needed it to do, but it would not necessarily be custom in it. From time to time I'd find somebody else that had the same theme, slightly different than mine, slightly different than the original, sometimes the same as the original. And nothing wrong with the themes, but there are times when you want something that's kind of all your own and more personalized. And so I kept looking around up until about 8-9 months ago. I finally figured out how to create drop-down menus in WordPress. And when I say drop-down menus, I don't mean just the CSS hard-coded stuff where you have a drop-down menu that shows up. I mean a menu system driven by the pages in WordPress. So when you add a page, a new item shows up automatically in your drop-down menu system. And to do that, you have to learn how to do a nested loop and make the connections to the database and pull the page name and pull the title and get it all to show up and coded right for CSS and HTML reasons so that Google can read it and it looks right on Firefox and Safari and looks right on Internet Explorer. And I spent months and months and months learning how to do menu systems. Finally figured it out. I bought an add-on for Dreamweaver that cost me like $80 that actually made some of it a little faster after a while, but it still took hours. And I went to Blog World in Las Vegas last year in October, and I came across this company that had a beta program called Artisteer, and this program called Artisteer, and basically it enabled you to create custom WordPress theme within the software program itself. Very cool little program. What I found was I downloaded the software. They offer a free trial so you can download it. In 10 minutes I could create a WordPress theme. Custom WordPress theme all of my own. Now in 10 minutes you're going to get something that's not super nice, but it's already of the quality of what you would find in the free theme section of WordPress. And, nice quality. It's got valid HTML, got valid CSS. Back in November, they didn't have valid CSS yet. They were close, but not quite there. They've since gone through an upgrade, and they do today. So you've got something that out of the box is exactly what you need for a site. Then it's just up to you to actually, code it off and design it in a way that works for you. And my own site, softdoit.com, this is a WordPress-driven site. This is something that I created with Artisteer. It's got a lot of drop-down menus. There's a lot of information on this site. It's an old site, and the information isn't organized as nicely as I would like it to be because I've continually upgraded the site to a certain extent. So not the best for navigation. I didn't create it from scratch. This has evolved over time, and I spend more time on my customer stuff than I do on my own site sometimes. But a very, very handy result, and I've done a number of these recently. I've done a number of different sites, and these are just kind of some snapshots of what you can do with them. I'm a blogger, so my focus tends to be on blog sites. However, as a blogger, I don't like to go to a site that just looks like a diary. And a lot of times bloggers are multifaceted a little bit. They work with a lot of different things, so you need a little bit more complexity, and the full capabilities of WordPress as a content management system start to come into play. So you can have a blog, which is basically an iterative document on the web, but you can start adding pages and menu systems, and all of a sudden you've got a fully functional site. You can add forums and an e-commerce package if you like, and a number of different things with all the plugins that are available in WordPress. And so I've done a number of different sites using this. Some of this was done with the beta version of the software. Some of it was done with the more recent version, 2.0. And I'm going to show you what that looks like a little bit. When you first start, you can actually not only generate themes with WordPress, but you can also generate themes with Joomla or Drupal. You can create just a static HTML template if you want to, or push something out to ASP.NET or CodeCharge. I'm going to create something in WordPress and get this started. This is the default thing that you see. Now, up here at the top,
I'm sorry, did you
Sure.
say you could do themes for Joomla also?
You can do Joomla themes through the same software as well. And just as a caveat, I'm not trying to sell the software, but in general, what I found is for people that have never created a WordPress theme before, sometimes just understanding why you have all these files that create into one page on a site doesn't always make sense. And one thing the software does, in addition to creating it for you, it's going to help us see how each of the components of a website, the header, the sidebar or the sidebars, the content section, the titles, the meta tag information that might go under the title in WordPress, how all that can be formatted, and then how that shows up in the CSS and how it shows up in the code. So we're going to kind of walk through a quick design, and then we'll take a look at some of the stuff behind the scenes for the people that are interested in that as well. But you don't need to know any coding to do that, to pull this off. This will kind of give you the big picture of what goes into a WordPress theme and how you can do it. Yep.
Does, you know, in WordPress, when you go in the editor, does it create a different file every time you do something?
When you go into the theme editor?
Yes. You know how that sidebar editor, header, footer, does it create another file for that? So you, or is it just on one PHP file?
This creates all the files that go. I'll show you what it creates. It creates multiple files, including the header file. It creates the index. It creates page. Creates single. It creates two sidebar files, footer file, and a handful of other things. So this is creating a full folder full of files, along with the graphics, the artwork behind the scenes, and more. So there's a number of different things that you can do with it. Now, I'm not a graphic designer. As I am more of a business developer. So when I do web design, I go to customers and I help them figure out what they need to answer for their customers, build the site, build the content. I know a lot about WordPress because I've worked with it as a blogger significantly, but graphic design has always kind of been difficult for me. My wife is the artist in the family. She went to Savannah College of Art Design. She's got the art degree. That's not me. She works as a teacher these days, and I work in the arts. But it's I went to school to be an accountant, actually. But this program, though, makes it very easy to get the inspiration started. And one of the tools they have right off the bat is in this ideas section. And you can click a number of these buttons to figure out what you might be interested in doing. And one of them is you can click the button and you'll get a suggestion on a completely different site look and feel. And you can click it again and get a different idea. And maybe you like the background or something like that, but you're not real crazy about the header. So you can then come in and get a new suggestion for the header.
It's awesome. I played with it for an hour.
And maybe you want a menu. Actually, the menu on this one is hidden, so we'll come back to that. But maybe you want to change the sheet style, make it wider and lower from the top. And maybe you want to change the blocks that go into the sidebar a little bit. Something different. And maybe you want to get a different suggestion. This is all the suggestion type of stuff. This isn't the customization yet. Maybe you want to change that around a little bit. And maybe after you do that, you want to get a different suggestion on the color scheme. Notice we still have that same background, but the color scheme for that background's changed a little bit. And maybe you liked it better 2 clicks ago. So you can do that. You can change fonts around with some, and these are all suggestions. So this is the program doing some automated stuff to help you get your creative thoughts going on this particular site. And then maybe you want to just get something completely different. And this one happens to have the menu thrown in. So maybe we want the menu, but we want the menu to look different. Different button looks and feels. So that's at the starting point. This is just what we have just in this one tab to kind of help us think what we want to do with it and get us, like you might if you go to the WordPress theme download section, you know, you're looking for themes, you're scrolling through the 700 themes that are available, and you know, you're clicking it one at a time and you're hitting preview to see the big thing, and maybe it's close. Maybe you download it and you upload it only to find that it's not valid for CSS, but it is for HTML, or maybe it doesn't look right on Safari, or it breaks on Internet Explorer, or it's got 5 links at the bottom for companies that have helped design it or sponsor it, and you click on one of those and it's a site you never want any of your customers or viewers or readers to ever go to in your life. You know, you don't mind necessarily giving the artist credit, but it's just not an appropriate link to have on your own site. So this already kind of gets you past all of that because this is entirely owned by you. The links will only be links that you control, and you can start to create a number of different things to improve the look and feel of your site. Now, I'm going to go into some of the sections that come with this, and I'm going to take a look at the color and font section. This is the scheme that's here. Now, we can still get suggest colors when we're in the color and font section. So we can still get that automated thing, and this basically redoes the entire color palette for the site. If we want to adjust that a little bit, and we kind of like the colors, but it's not quite the right tone that we're looking for, we can come down and maybe get something slightly darker. Or maybe we want something we want a big change in it. And then we say, oh no, you know, even me, a non-graphic designer, knows that that's just way over the top. So we can come in here, we can take a look at some of the, pick a font set, and we can take a look at the layout of the text within the site a little bit too. And notice I'm hovering over these. I'm not clicking at this point. So I'm just dragging my mouse down a little bit. While I'm hovering, it will display and update the changes that are happening behind the scenes so that you can kind of preview that particular item if you want it. And if you do want it, then you left-click and it keeps it. Or you can just move off and it goes back. You can change the font scale. Maybe that's very small font. Maybe you want something a little larger. You can go into the layout of the site, and there's 2 different primary components here. There is a header menu option where you do have a menu system and you do have a header. There is a component where the menu goes on top of the header, so now the menu is up here. There is a section where you only have a header, no menu, or menu, no header, or no menu, no header. And I'll come back to this a little bit later, but there's some important reasons why you might consider each of those. And when you get into a lot more custom stuff, if you are a graphic designer, if you are a good web programmer, if you do know PHP, you can use this to generate a lot of what you need and then go back and do some special things with Flash and different things to put it into the site to make it even better. For now, we'll go with menu over the header. When you look at the column formats, currently this program works on a 3-column format, meaning you can have up to 3 columns. You can have different layouts with hovering over it, no sidebars essentially, or a sidebar on the left that is relatively narrow, or on the right. You can have some of the recent things that are popular with blogs these days, 2 columns on the right. This would be relatively narrow and then relatively wide. If we choose that, let's say we like that, but the columns aren't quite the widths that we're looking for, we can come in here and we can change the specific width of, say, the 3rd column and make it narrower than the column on the left. I'm going to skip over to Sheet real quick and show you also that you can drive the overall width of the site. Right now it's set at 900 pixels, so if we wanted a 1,000 pixel site, we could make this a lot wider. As a percentage, at 1,000 pixels, if this is set at 25%, that would be 250 pixels approximately, depending on the padding that goes in between here. But you can start to drive exactly what size you want in here for either of these columns. Maybe you've got a video bar that you want to put at the top of a sidebar, or you want to put an ad up at the top or within or something like that. So there's a number of things that you can do there. Now, when you're using the program, it has some default items that tend to show up on many WordPress installations. This essentially drives widgets. So this displays these in the program, but this will export these in your default arrangement if you do not have any widgets of WordPress active. But as soon as you activate a widget in either of the sidebars, these will disappear, and whatever widgets you want to use will be used there, and they will be formatted just like these are formatted. So this is widget ready, ultimately, but this is basically given to give you a little bit of a preview of what you'll receive when you take this thing live. I'm going to change that width back just a little bit. With the resolution that we have here, we can't see everything too well, but you can come in here under background, and you can, there are some default backgrounds that you can pull into the program. You can change color arrangements around a little bit. You can add different types of glare styles, which you can see this glare showing up just a little bit in the background. Again, I'm not a graphic designer, so my choices here sometimes will look a little crazy. I'm, when it comes to graphic design, I don't know what I'm doing.
Can you mess around with graphics in this program?
You can't. Now, if I wanted to pull in an image from a file, and let's see, I might have to. So, let's see. Here's a background that I've used for a friend of mine who I've been helping with his website. His name is Warren Whitlock. He's written a couple books on Twitter, and he also works in book marketing. But he has an image of himself standing up against some books. Now, in this particular site, I pull that background image in, and the current width for this is a little large, so I'm going to slim it down. So if I wanted to use this background, I've got the image of him on the back. I've got the theme, so we can change the background around. So you can create your own background images. You could, for example, if you use MySpace, and it's getting a little older these days, but if you like the scrolling background, a picture in the back and the scrolling background and some transparency, you can do that as well. So we could make this relatively transparent, which for this particular site doesn't necessarily work that well with this color scheme, but you can work with a number of different layers of transparency if you want transparency. You can add different colors for the background as well. Actually, I'm on Sheet now. You can change the gradient. Notice we still have a little bit of that glare up here, so we could change the we'll flip it the other way maybe. Not changing. Let's see, we can pull in some other images too. What do we have?
So when you
Maybe we want one without the picture. So we can take that out of the picture and kind of go from there. Now, within the background, if we didn't want an image, we can do that as well. We can take it out. And now this is just the background color. So we can come in here and change color and just go with the solid color if we don't actually want to use an image for the background. And you can literally take a snapshot on the wall, and pull that in as your background if you want. Or you can take a picture of a flower, or with digital cameras the way they are today, you can take a picture of just about anything relatively close up or with a lot of pixels, and it'll look amazing. So it just kind of depends on what you want to utilize.
Would it let you have a repeating tile effect?
You can't. That's a good question. Yes, yes, you can do. Let me see if I can demonstrate. We'll use. So we could tile. It's not going to work terribly well with this. Oh, actually, not as bad as I think. Now, to a certain extent, it's going to stretch. So when you want to tile something, you're going to want to make sure that you get the dimensions of the original picture set correctly. But there's a number of things that you can center it. If it's a larger picture, you might want it centered. Actually, if we go back to tile, this will probably demonstrate that transparency option a little bit better. So you can start to see how transparency might work, especially for like a travel site if you want palm trees in the background or something like that. Within this too, that's at 60% transparency, one of the defaults. You could go with something a little lower to get a little bit more contrast in the background.
There's a lot of people missing this meeting.
That's why we're recording. So,
where you been all my life, Brett?
Looking for you. So that's the background. I'm going to come back and forth to sheet a little bit. We'll change this width to something wider real quick. And go into the header. Now in the header, you have two different image options that you can work with. There are some default images that they offer. That there's an art package that comes with this. So you can come in here and hover over these, and again it will display while you're hovering. And let's say you click one that you like, or you can bring in your own picture for that matter. You can change the position around.
That's a great way to create my headings, which I have been looking for.
Definitely. Yep. No, this.
Now I can have the pictures that I have. So, does it carry those pictures in the file, or will it still look for any URL if the picture is?
We'll come back to that. That's a. There's a this now. This is a what you see, what you get type of editor to a certain extent. You'll notice I'm applying a color theme on top of this image too. So that's not the original image. It's got a darker theme. And you'll also notice some lines at the top and the bottom to help emphasize the text. When the early versions of the program came out, that didn't happen. And so sometimes you would have text on an image where it was hard to read the text because there was a lot of different colors within whatever the picture was, lots of lights or something, and making it difficult to read. So this makes it easier. But when you export it, this header image sometimes gets chopped up a little bit into multiple components to help render these different layers of the image. So it's not necessarily when you export this won't necessarily be one big square picture. It could be two or three. Kind of depends on the effects that you apply.
Do you have to pre-format your own image for this resolution? Does when you bring it in, it will stretch it?
Let me see if I can demonstrate a little bit. And hopefully, I'm a blogger, so there might be some weird pictures in here, but it shouldn't be anything terribly strange. Come back to that. So, find a good one.
WordPress logo looks like half of Volkswagen Bugs.
So, here's Smeagol from Lord of the Rings. Now, you'll notice this is a very square picture. that we're working with. So I can, within this position option, I can change what we're focusing on a little bit. But I can't change the size. I can't change the corners. So if I wanted to capture more of this particular square image, I would need to go to the original image in Firefox, change the sizes a little bit to something more rectangular. Or, is one option, or I can come in and I can change the height of the header and make that taller. And maybe that's still not tall enough for me. Maybe I want, that's the largest default, but let's say I want, maybe I'm working on a photo site and a large header image is more appropriate. That's not going to work for a lot of sites, but for some sites they might want. So I get the whole head in there, and I don't have to format it anymore. So that's one example. So you can. Now, I don't have the rights to Smeagol's headshot, so I wouldn't necessarily take this live. But, there are people out there that, they'll go snag it, take a picture of anything on the web, and they could easily drop it in there. I don't recommend that, but it's one of the potential pitfalls. There are other ways to create your own images, take a picture, and work with it. But this is just kind of an example. Now, let's...
Can you change the pictures, like make an effect, like it changes every 2 seconds?
That's not something that you can do within the program right now. However,
Can you import a GIF? An animated GIF?
you cannot. I've tried that. It'll freeze it down. But what you can do, if you need something like that, if you need an image to rotate through, you can leave the header out of your design and then go in and put it in after the fact. That's what I would recommend. Same thing for Flash. So doesn't have that capability with the 2.0 version of the program yet. I think that will probably be one of there have been a huge number of upgrades that they went from 1.0 to 2.0 in just the last 4 months, from November to end of February. That, I suspect, might be one of the other areas that they'll get a lot of bang for the buck. Being able to bring in a Swift file from Flash, or some more capabilities with the images and things like that. But you can't do it today. Let me take this back a couple iterations and get away from Smeagol.
I didn't even know you had a name.
Yeah, no, that was his. When I was a kid, I read those books quite a bit. So now there's another thing that you can do as well. Now this is some stock photos that are on this site. You can bring these in, and it will add a layer to the site. So you could have a background, and you can pull in a headshot, or you could have, and you can move that around a little bit.
We deliver to the mountains.
We sure do.
Deliver to the mountains. You can do a little bit of recoloring, not a whole lot. Typically, if you really want recoloring, you should probably do that with the original picture. But you can do some. Again, you can grab, some of your own pictures. And move those around as well. Now, the program, when you export it, will create code that will pull in your actual, this will pull in the code, and I'll show this to you a little bit later in the PHP, but this will pull in the code that pulls down your actual title from your website. So in this section, you can So you can type something in to kind of get a feeling for what your title might be as you're doing the design phase, but it won't export the text. It will pull it from whatever you have in your actual WordPress installation. So and you can do a number of things with the font formats, with color. Maybe that's too light or dark. There are some default things that you can do with the text. A number of different ways you can move it around or align it. You can also, if you want part of this to be picture and part of it not to be picture, you can do some things to move the actual text into a box away from the image so that you have the image separate. And in this case,
that way you don't get lines in the image.
right, and change the size, format, and fit a little bit. So a couple of different things that you can do with headers. Then, now, one of the reasons why I originally actually invested money in this was because of the menu system. I kind of mentioned earlier that I spent a lot of time, many months, learning how to do nested loops and menu systems, and very complicated stuff. And for a non-PHP programmer, you know, you're going to spend a lot of midnight hours figuring it out and trying to find the right sources and stuff like that. But when I found this tool, you know, it's very easy to understand now. I should point out that the default settings that it shows categories and archive. Now, categories and archive in WordPress infer the categories of your posts and the archives of your posts. When you actually export it, it does not create a menu system that will work off the archives and categories. It's just the template that it has with WordPress. It will be driven off of the pages in WordPress, not the posts. So, going back to my site here, this is a site that's powered with this, and these are all pages. I do have posts, recent posts for this particular site. These are all posts. Those do not show up in the menu system. I guess I could show you another. This is my personal blog site, and again, you can kind of see, it's still loading up a little bit. This is a menu system. It's got some links up here now.
That's the picture you took in the morning, huh?
This is this is a picture from a couple months ago. In addition to being bad at graphic design, I'm really terrible at taking my own headshots. But this is driven off of it. Now, in this case, one of the things that you can do is you can create the menu system powered off of pages. In this particular one, it links to books. If you look at the structure up here, this is actually triggering a category. And what I've done is I've created a page called Books, and I've then created a 301 redirect to send anybody that goes to my page called Books to my actual category for books. So I can create a post and then deliver people to that category when they click on it. In a similar fashion, I've done 301 redirects to send people to Twitter and what have you. From the site, and basically start to put those things into my menu so that they don't take up a bunch of wasted space somewhere else. So that's just kind of another example. In this particular case, I created a logo for There's Something About Harry. My name is Brett, but my middle name is Harold. And years back when I first started blogging, I wanted a test site where I could just play around and learn stuff. And I wanted it to be a little anonymous, so I came up with this, Harry for Harold. As a blogger, this actually became one of my most popular sites on a personal level, and so eventually I kind of put my own name with it. But that was never intended to be the original case. So the name, you know, sometimes you haphazardly fall into these things. So, but that's another example. I created the logo, and I pulled that in, and I added the headshot. That's kind of one example of the result that you can get. Now, once you're in here, you can change the way the menu buttons are shaped. You can change the shape, distance, pull them in tighter together. You can change the gradient of the buttons or the background. So these would be the buttons actually. You can indicate whether or not you want multiple levels or not. So there's no drop down now when I trigger that. Or you can have multi-level. And it'll go up to 3 levels deep. So you can have a page linked with no parent-child relationship. If you're not familiar with page, let me ask a question. How many people have worked with pages and created parent-child relationships within WordPress? Okay, so actually quite a few of you, about half. So within WordPress, there's a capability to create a parent-child relationship with a page. So you'll have like a parent page and a page like a subdirectory page underneath of it. And you can have the main parent, a child page below it, and another child page below it. That's as deep as you can get with it. From experience of doing it manually, I've learned that the nested loop structure that you create tends to go a little crazy if you try and go a 4th level. You can do it, but very complex from my novice perspective. If you're a PHP programmer and you can do it, hats off to you. That's some good stuff. But so when you come into the Pages section of WordPress, you'll see here now. So what we have is the journal and the books subpage. We have some of the social media buttons. WordPress creates this little dash to indicate that it's below something. And if we actually pull up this page, show you where that happens. Now over here under attributes, for WordPress, we have something called parent. And so that basically says the books page is a subpage of journal. And that's what triggers this item. If we wanted to, we could actually change it, make it a, I don't know, in this case, a submenu of Facebook. We can update the page. And now we no longer have books showing up in the drop-down for journal, but when we go to Facebook, it now shows up over here. So driving it from WordPress, we can change our menu system around relatively easily. Does that make sense?
What does it do to the SEO and other things because it changes the URL, right?
That's a good question. In this case, I'm using a 301 redirect, so I might need to change the 301 redirect. Let me see if I can give you a good example on this site. I don't have good examples on this site. Let me.
Does the WordPress automatically do that?
It does, but depending on how you do your permalink structure, that will have an impact. So I'm going to. This is a subpage. Now up here in the permalink structure, I have a page called Products, Reviews, and Tutorials for the Products button for this particular site. If I were to move this page to a different subpage, making it maybe a subpage of Solutions, Solutions would then, according to the way I have my permalink structure set up, would then show up in the middle, which would change the hyperlink, and I would need to make some adjustments with my htaccess or 301 redirect, or if you're using the plugins.
It's not automatically.
That's not because it's all in WordPress. The software is something different. So you're changing the organization of your site, and that would change it slightly. So if you move a page, just like if you moved a page anywhere else, Now, we are using, in this example, I'm using SEO-friendly naming conventions. So, and that definitely does help. So there's benefit in having that. If I went with a permalink structure that just had a number, then it wouldn't matter. But when I use a naming convention that's driven off of text, then it's gonna have an impact. But when you make that change, you simply go into the htaccess file, set up a new redirect, and you're golden as far as SEO is concerned. So, sure. Uh huh. I haven't used the Suckerfish plugin. What is? Okay. I've used a theme by Suckerfish a few times, but it's been a while. There are some free themes out there that will generate different types of menus. It's starting to become more prevalent.
It's actually like an independent plugin.
Okay.
Which I believe I haven't used it, but I use a few themes that do use it.
Yep.
That have it built into it.
I've tried a couple. Typically, I have tried a couple plugins. I haven't tried that specific one. I haven't had a whole lot of luck with all the plugins, partly because the plugin and the theme are typically going to be very integral, and so sometimes it will work on a theme and sometimes it won't. Sometimes it could be the plugin's fault, and sometimes it could be the theme's fault, and sometimes it could be your fault for not knowing how to put the two together. So there are alternate solutions like that out there. Personally, I find a lot of value in providing menu systems, unless you really want to have something that's just a blog for a diary type of purpose. But it helps to organize things a lot. From an SEO perspective, too, this deep links all of your pages on the site right from every page, so that's good for SEO. It's, there's a lot of positives to it. I don't know how the plugins might treat it. I have seen a couple that do something that's quasi-Flash as well, and that's a different beast. These are all CSS drop-down menus. So, but no, there's definitely other options out there. You can make if you recall with this particular site, I've got some relatively large buttons. This isn't a business site, and I don't have a lot of pages on here, but I do want to make the buttons that are there very prominent. So when you're designing, you can change the text around, making a little bit more emphasis on the buttons if you choose. And then sometimes if you are going to have drop-downs, you can leave all your sub-pages smaller, or you can make those larger as well. So there's different ways to drive this menu system and the results. As you look at the articles, there's a number of things that you can do within the article section. And here we're talking about the content of the site. And I'm going to go back and remove the transparency as we look at this a little closer. So within the article section, again, you can hit the suggest. You can do this on every tab of this. So if you're not sure exactly where to start, you can kind of go through some of these and find something that you like. And the article section covers everything that goes in below the text, the title, the meta tag information that comes in below the title, categories, tags, dates, comments, and things like that. So within this section, you can work with the heading of the site and change the way the heading looks. You can change the hyperlink colors if you want to. You can change the quote section. Actually, we had changed the heading earlier. You can change the way the quotes work. So we're hovering a little bit to kind of see what color scheme we might or might not like. Set that in stone. You can change the icons, and you can upload files for your icons if you want to. If you want to create a quote icon that you really like, you can upload that into the system. You can change the color of the quotes. Lots of different things that you can do. If you want to make sure that your tables look right, you can have them standard format to a particular size or something like that. Now, one thing I have found with this program is that the border, if you put in a border weight, it will override something if you've manually coded a post without a border, for example. It will change that. Different class, I'll show some other tools that make adding pictures and tables and things like that in WordPress super easy.
So these changes you're making,
to generate the theme,
Yep.
right? And then those would be the default settings.
These would be the default settings then in the theme that gets generated. Yep.
Are you maybe able to import a
No, you cannot. Not yet.
Not yet, yeah, so
I have found that you can emulate existing themes fairly quickly. So to a certain extent, you can copy by basically reformatting a brand new theme. It's not as efficient as, maybe working through Adobe and, slicing something up the way you want it. But, well, I wouldn't call that efficient. It's not as exact. That could take you a couple hours, but you can do that a little bit. I think one of the main reasons why you can import today is because every theme is coded very differently. And so there's no standard way to import a theme. I think you could probably import some of the CSS, but even the coding in the CSS sometimes gets unstandard naming conventions from time to time. So I don't think that's something that's going to be possible anytime in the tuning. This basically creates the theme for the site, so every page on that site is going to have that theme driving it.
Say they want a different style on another page. It's going to be driven by this.
The answer to your question is a WordPress functionality question. In WordPress, there is something called template. In WordPress, you can pick a template different from a theme. A theme is the overall look and feel of the site, but you can choose something that's called a template. And it's an additional file that gets added to your theme structure, and that can have a completely look or feel from your regular site. It can be slightly different. I do have a template running on this site. Now, you'll notice on this site, this is the home page. This is the sidebar. On this sidebar, got categories and tags and things of that nature. When you go to this page, however, all that disappears. So, there's more information about this particular product. That's driven by a template. So I've gone in and I've changed the way the sidebar will work on this particular page. When I go into WordPress, then I select the template that I want, and it applies this new template to the overall theme.
That's different from the one generated by Artisteer.
It's different. Now, I've gone in and actually modified the Artisteer theme in Dreamweaver, editing the HTML a little bit, pulling pages and things like that in differently. That might be a class for a different day, but it is possible. You can have it look completely different. It could be a completely different. It doesn't have to look anything like the original theme, or it can be a slight modification or anything in between.
Does Artisteer, though, generate another page template?
It does not generate templates today. No, it doesn't. But
Okay, so it just
you could create a...
And then you, then you
Yep.
have to, once you have it in WordPress themes, then you have to change it.
What you could do if you wanted to, you could, within Artisteer, and this is actually something I've thought about doing a few times, instead of exporting it as a WordPress theme, you could design it, you could export it as an HTML page and load that up as your template as one option. You could export it as an entirely separate WordPress theme, go back into Dreamweaver or something, pull all those pages together and create a template from that theme and upload that as your theme. But again, this is we'll save this one for another day, but it's definitely something that can have a lot of value. One of the things that's becoming more popular these days on some sites, it doesn't apply for all, but you can change the way your meta tags work a little bit. I've got something hidden here on this particular. So we can show or hide dates if we want to. We can show or hide author. We can add an icon to go with that. We can show or hide the edit capability for the page. There's a future version of WordPress coming out. It might show up in 2.8. It almost made it into 2.7. That will enable you with an Ajax look and feel to edit on a page in WordPress right on the page without having to actually go into WP admin. So, that's, I think, going to be partly driven off of the edit function, which is a meta option for WordPress. So there will be a day when you'll be looking at your website and you'll say, oh, I don't like that. And you'll be able to hit a button, and without leaving it, you'll just be able to type over it again and hit enter, and it'll update the page right then and there. That's not too far away.
But you have to have the administrative rights to it.
Oh yeah,
Otherwise, everybody would pay.
you would, and there is a plugin that, as we talked about this the other day, but you can allow your users to recommend changes, kind of like track changes in Microsoft Word or something like that, and then that goes to a queue that you can then approve or reject if you want to. Maybe somebody sees a misspelling on a page, or a fact is slightly wrong or something like that, or a date's off. They can recommend a change, and you can accept it, and it will automatically update that page with whatever they recommended. But that's a plugin. So you can add a number of features there. You can do the same thing with the footer, which you can hide with have a background or no background. You can add tags, comments. You can stylize a little bit to emphasize it. You can insert icons from files again. So if you want to custom code something on a site, you can pull it in. On one of Warren's sites, he writes about Twitter. He's got a book and 25,000 followers or something like that. On the comments section, we created a little icon for the @ symbol and put it down there for the comments just to kind of help people go along with the theme. Change the look and feel of the blocks within your sidebar. Now, I want to point out something. One of the things with this program that needs a little improvement. When you create your titles for the blocks, it doesn't wrap. So when you take it into WordPress, if you've got a long title in your widget, it's not going to wrap down. So you need to make sure that your font size is set to a level that fits whatever it is. You can change buttons around. This would be the search button or buttons that might show up elsewhere in your site, wherever you have a form or something of that nature. Different things that you can do. I think I might have shown the footer options. There's different things that you can do with the footer. Adding RSS tags if you want to create a custom RSS tag, etc. So, and then when you are ready, you can preview it in a browser if you like. Here we are in Firefox looking at this theme, kind of double checking it. Comes time to export. You come into this point.
So that exported folder is going to be on your laptop.
So this is going to, a folder. So it's going to, I'll give it a name. And I can export it as a folder. So this would be like a WordPress theme folder that you could upload, or I can export it as a zip. Some people like to, as they bring in themes into their WordPress site, they like to use a zip version. Some people like to use folders. Personally, I go with folders, partly because I tend to do a few small edits in Dreamweaver with whatever I create. So I pulled up the, now this is going to look like a bunch of gibberish for anybody that's never looked at HTML or PHP. And that's fine, because that's how it looked to me when I first looked at this stuff. And that's part of the reasons why creating a WordPress theme is difficult for people that don't have a programming background. WordPress in general, and a content management system in general, is kind of like a paper doll system. With the paper doll, you have the doll, and you've got the paper clothes that you can put on top of the doll and make the doll look slightly different. A theme is kind of like those clothes, and the doll part is the actual system that runs on a database on your website. So you can change the theme like you would change a paper doll's clothes a little bit. And so this is the code that actually makes sure that the doll knows how to walk and talk and bring you traffic from the internet and deliver the right content at the right moments and things of that nature. So this is anywhere where you see PHP, that basically is typically going to be some sort of code that's talking to your host where your database is, and your database holds the information that's in your WordPress site. Some of that's going to drive how the program works, and some of it's going to drive the content. So every time you see this little PHP piece, it's signaling that the code on this particular site is going to go out and grab something from the database and do something. Now, this is the header, so everything that went into our header section here, including the menu, is on this particular file, all the way down to the description. So this pulls in the menu system, pulls in the header and the description. We've got the footer file up as well, and this one you can see a preview down here a little bit. These are the standard items that come when you do the first export. Now there are some export options if you like. With this particular software, for those of you that care, you do not have to keep the Powered by WordPress and the standard text that comes out of there. You can put your own in. This is not, when you buy the software, you've got full rights to anything that you create with it. So that's fine. One caveat, if you use their images that come in their standard stock photo type stuff, you can only use those images on your sites. You can't go build a client website with those images. So the slight difference on licensing. But anything else that you design there, if you use your own images in the background, or even if you pull in your own images of a mountain or something like that, or something that you photoshopped up, you can use that with full rights, and you don't have to credit WordPress. You don't have to credit people there. I typically go back and forth depending on what site I'm working on. I usually always throw in WordPress. Sometimes I'll include the software. Sometimes I'll put my own company's name there for having done the design and the setup and all the other work. So sometimes I'll leave it blank. I usually, as a web designer, I leave it blank when I'm paid to leave it blank. But kind of depends. So these are basically two files that represent the code that goes at the top of a page on any given page and the bottom of the page. Everything that goes in between will be driven from the index file and the sidebars. So now, and I'm not going to get into a super heavy PHP class here or anything like that, but you'll notice this is the index file. So this is kind of like the home page file. And the first piece of code that it has here is get header. So it's basically saying, go get this header file and render it at the top of the page and make it display. And then it goes down a little bit farther and it does some CSS, and it'll eventually grab the content from the database, go get the articles, go get whatever it is that you've put on the site. It will tell you to get the sidebars and get the footer. And that basically renders the site on the fly. So here towards the bottom it's saying go get the sidebar. So get the sidebar on the left. In this case, in this particular program, they're always numbered 1, 2 or 1, 2. So it says go get the sidebar on the left first, and then go get the sidebar on the right. And from an SEO perspective, for those of you that are concerned, it deals with the content on your site first, and then it gets the sidebars. It doesn't do the sidebars first. That's also good if you're doing mobile type of displays or something like that. If you're doing mobile, this has some support for, if you want to generate a website that looks good on an iPhone, this does a little bit of it, but you're probably going to need to do something else. Get the plugin for iPhone or go do some CSS coding yourself after the fact.